One of my dreams is to be an actress.
To be an actress.
Mommy thinks so.
I think attachment parenting is being aware of your child's needs, and to me is also natural parenting because it's what comes naturally and what feels right.
In May 2012, a national magazine ignited a firestorm when it referred to the practice of attachment parenting by asking mothers everywhere, "Are you mom enough?" But supporters of the practice say it isn't about being mom enough, and attachment shouldn't be taken literally.
The attachment word in attachment parenting, it focuses on the relationship, not so much the physical attachment.
So what is attachment parenting?
It's being flexible about parenting your individual children.
Good night, Mom.
Good night, sweet boy.
How are real families putting it into practice?
Well, part of me was shocked that everyone didn't do this because it is kind of what just feels right.
And do the experts say it's a good idea?
So there's no cookie cutter answer, but warm, sensitive, responsive parenting is absolutely fundamental.
It's on the quilt, it's on the bed, it's on...
Over the next half hour, we'll introduce you to 4 different families with one thing in common: a shared belief that attachment parenting is the right choice for their children.
Okay, so what do we do?
Read the first thing for me, Tyler.
Okay, morning glory muffins. 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour.
When you hear attachment parenting, you think like hippie, and there's definitely people who do that, but you don't have to be like that to do a lot of these things, to have these things in your life. I'm gonna do the 1, and then Ryan, you can do the 1/4.
Joelle and Todd Schultz are raising 4 children in the Pittsburgh suburb of Mount Lebanon.
Flour, sugar, cinnamon, baking powder. So sugar goes in here.
Over the past 8 years, they have gradually adopted a parenting style known as attachment parenting.
In the large bowl, stir everything together.
And they've encountered some resistance along the way.
Sometimes I tend to downplay it, just to make it easier and not have somebody, judge me or get into it with someone, because there's no point. But family, it's been a challenge. My parents, at first, they didn't understand it. My mom didn't breastfeed. They certainly didn't bed share in any way. But since she's here every day, all day, she sees it, and she now embraces it. If I want to nurse until Dylan's 5, I think she would be totally 100% supportive of that's what we chose and that's what works for our family, because she sees it. She sees how we interact, she sees what it does. Perfect, Ryan. Awesome. Some other family, will get comments, nothing direct, but like, wow, some kids stay in their mom's bed until they're 13. Isn't that weird? And, I get the point that you're trying to make, but this, but nobody in our family has been really blatantly rough. Everybody's been pretty supportive. They kind of think this is what they're doing, this is their family. If that works for them, that's good.
I'm going to get you started a little bit.
Can I stir a little?
I think we just stay true to that philosophy of, we don't try to preach it upon other people. It's what works for us, right? We don't feel it's like superior or anything. It just fits for us.
All right, back up. Hot. And there we go. Now
Todd and Joelle say they didn't set out to become attachment parents. But soon after the birth of their oldest child, Tyler, they realized that a lot of the parenting advice they were getting wasn't working for them.
Early on with him, we had everybody telling us what to do. And I was terrified to bring him in bed with me. We had a co-sleeper next to the bed. I would sit up, he was up every hour and a half around the clock. I would sit up, I had this timer, I was timing how long he ate, I was writing everything down to the second to make sure I was doing it right, and it was awful.
Kept track of every dirty diaper.
I did, to make sure he was eating enough and everything. And I was so scared to bring him in bed with me that I would get him up and I'd sit up and wake myself up and nurse him. And it was painful and it was horrible and it wasn't good at all. But I was so afraid to bring him in bed because everyone says, it's not safe, you'll roll over on the baby. So we just didn't do it. And I can remember around 3 months, we were switching him, and we were told by everyone, let him cry it out, don't spoil him. And we tried that, and I had to go down to the basement and like have pillows over my head because he was screaming, and I was like in agony. Physically, because I was nursing him and hearing him cry like that was painful, but it just felt so wrong. Right. And so that was what kind of led us to attachment parenting, because it was like, how can you do something that's so counterintuitive? Like, we have to just trust our instincts as parents, and this can't be right.
When her second son was born, Joelle decided to tune out the advice and to tune into what she felt was right.
And by the time Ryan came, which was almost 2 years later, he wouldn't sleep at night. He had to be in my arms, and he had to be nursing. And it got to the point where I was struggling still with, here's what we're supposed to do, and here's what is working for us and what feels right. And I just said, you know what? We're gonna sleep with him. And we brought him in bed, and that was the moment where everything started to click and feel good and be right. You know, if I hold him at night like this in my arms, he's right there. He can nurse, and I don't even have to wake up, and neither does he. So Ryan and Piper and Dylan all slept through the night from day one because they were in bed with us.
And it's worked for us, right? I mean, it goes back to, part of it is just experience, right? When you're a new parent with your first child, everything is so, you don't want to break them, right? And you don't know what, you only have the books and what people tell you to go by. But kind of as you go along and have more kids, you realize, okay, this isn't going to damage them for life. This is fine. We can do this. And we'd research the things about sleeping in the bed and realize that okay, it's really not as bad as when you start to look into it. It's not as bad as everyone thinks. And we actually got a mattress that's appropriate for it, an extra firm mattress, to kind of alleviate that concern. And like Joelle said, it worked for us. We're both working full time. We needed to sleep, and it fit our lifestyle.
These days, all 4 kids are welcome to snuggle in their bed, but only Todd and Joelle's smaller children sleep there all night.
We looked into the safe way. We don't have any extra pillows, any extra blankets. If Todd has a couple beers, he doesn't sleep with them. He sleeps somewhere else.
For a long time, Joelle and Todd didn't realize what they were doing had a name.
So we started to do all these things, and then I realized that a lot of my friends didn't. And I belonged to a mom's group, and people were completely the opposite of that. And I thought, okay, then we might be doing something a little weird here. So I started to look for other people that did the same kind of things as us, and that's only when I discovered that we were actually doing what's called attachment parenting, and that it was a thing, and that that people did believe like this. And a part of me was shocked that everyone didn't do this, because it is kind of what just feels right. But another part of me was shocked that there were other people that were doing some of these things that were afraid to even admit it.
Although the concept of attachment parenting isn't new, it recently became the subject of renewed attention after a national magazine referred to the practice by asking mothers everywhere, "Are you mom enough?" The article inside the magazine featured nationally known pediatrician and best-selling author of the baby book, Dr. William Sears. Sears and his wife, registered nurse Martha Sears, are proponents of attachment parenting. Both serve on advisory boards of the nonprofit group Attachment Parenting International. Somerset, Pennsylvania mom Courtney Sperlazza has a master's in public health and is the managing editor of API Speaks, Attachment Parenting International's interactive online blog.
What the attachment word in attachment parenting is it focuses on the relationship, not so much the physical attachment. Yes, we say use nurturing touch, so hold your baby, baby wearing, things like that.
But according to Courtney, there is no one-size-fits-all requirement. Instead, there are attachment parenting principles that families can incorporate into their lives however they see fit.
First is prepare for pregnancy, birth, and parenting. That just says to learn about what's coming next. The next is to feed with love and respect. That starts with, we recommend breastfeeding. Doesn't always work out, and there's a technique called bottle nursing where you, instead of propping up a bottle and walking away, you would feed the baby in the crook of your arm, and it's very nurturing. There's cuddling, and there's contact and proximity. And then that extends beyond the milk days. You feed with love and respect into the solid foods, and that one can continue throughout life.
Be careful, some of them are pretty hot.
Respond with sensitivity is just what it sounds like. Respond to your baby's needs in the early weeks with sensitivity, knowing that they're very new to this world, and throughout childhood there's different stages that you have to be sensitive to, level of development at the time and level of maturity, and where their emotions are at that period. So that continues throughout life. Ensure safe sleep physically and emotionally. That notice it doesn't say put your baby into your bed right next to you. It's making sure their sleeping arrangements are safe, physically and emotionally, meaning parenting at night, being there when they need you to chase away the boogeyman or whatever that may be, parenting at night too. You want to blow it with the wand, not with the Spider-Man? Provide consistent and loving care. The idea is that young children need to attach with a primary caregiver, and there can be more than one, 2 parents or a parent and a caregiver while the parent's at work, so that they have that go-to person, like I said before, the secure base, the home base to go back to whenever they might need to check in and make sure everything's okay. Practice positive discipline. Not so much relevant in the early days, but I have a 3-year-old and it's very relevant right now, to make sure that discipline isn't shaming the child or hurtful or humiliating. The interactions are positive and behavior is modeling. And then strive for balance in your personal and family life. Some of us are better than this than others, but always make sure that you're meeting your own needs and make time for yourself, and while being sensitive to your kids' needs, but you have to remember that you're a person too.
Got it.
How you doing?
Oh, great.
Good, good.
In St. Clairsville, Ohio, Natalie and Jonathan Hawthorne are getting ready to welcome their 4th child into the world.
Because I'm trying to not have an epidural.
Okay.
And I'm also trying to not be induced.
Okay.
Which these would be different things for me, because I've always been induced and always had an epidural.
Since the birth of her oldest daughter 6 years ago, Natalie's perceptions of parenting have undergone a fairly radical transformation.
I would say I was very conventional, mainstream parenting, aside from breastfeeding. I guess I'll be her, but I want to change her outfit. Then with Aliona, I started to want to do things a little bit differently. I got involved in a breastfeeding support group in the area, and some of the moms in the group were into some natural parenting type of things, such as cloth diapering and homeschooling and things like that.
Natalie began to embrace those choices too.
Then with Ryland, everything was different. I was getting into a lot more of like, not even just attachment parenting, but like natural parenting and like organic eating and different things like that.
And she believes her parenting choices have affected her kids' personalities.
One of my dreams is to be an actress. Mommy thinks so.
Kira always wanted to be by me, but it's probably because I was trying to push her away from me. Also, I'm sure every child's different, but I think just out of those two, Kira and Aliona is much more independent, and I did more attachment parenting with her. Kira is much more dependent. She does not want to leave my side. She wants to be with me. She doesn't like to be dropped off at a children's event or anything like that. I always have to stay. Aliona's like, you're fine to go, see you later, you know. So, and I see Ryland is very independent too. Well, which one are you going to draw?
I don't know.
Today, Natalie homeschools her children, and at 6 months pregnant, with her doctor's blessing, she continues to nurse her 2.5-year-old Ryland. For Natalie, breastfeeding has become a central part of who she is as a parent.
I have gray. No, you want brown. I have 2 breastfeeding tattoos. I think this is really funny, I have to say this, because I have had once or twice people kind of start with me about breastfeeding, like extended breastfeeding or the value of breastfeeding. I'm like, you don't start a breastfeeding debate with somebody that has breastfeeding tattoos. Like, that's just not something you do. They obviously feel really, really strongly about it.
Recently, Natalie and her kids took part in an Ohio Valley breastfeeding walk in support of World Breastfeeding Week. And right now, she has no plans to wean Ryland anytime soon.
Ryland really likes to nurse, really. Like, friends tease me, other nursing mothers tease me about how much Ryland has always nursed and things like that. And now he's gonna ask. And
I'm gonna have boob.
and so we're finally down to only nursing 3 times a day, and this is nap time. And he likes to nurse at nap time. And he is 2.5, and I don't think I have a ton of milk. And people are always like, when you're pregnant, you're kind of like, don't touch me. Like, and when you have a lot of kids, especially, you're like touched out and just like everybody stay away. And I feel that way sometimes. And people are like, how can you stand it? And I'm like, I don't know. He doesn't want to quit nursing. And why would you want to force? When he gets hurt or something like that, you can comfort him. You know what I mean? And okay. I hope it's just a boy thing, because this next baby can't nurse as much as him, or I will never have time to do anything.
At Pittsburgh's Midwife Center for Birth and Women's Health, Cheryl Bradshaw is a registered nurse and internationally board-certified lactation consultant. According to Cheryl, breastfeeding into the toddler years is not only normal, it has health benefits as well.
Here's my baby.
We found that some of the immunities actually increase in breast milk as babies and toddlers are older, which is interesting because babies are in our lap and toddlers are far away from us putting strange things in their mouth, so they need extra immunities. You know, it calms temper tantrums, it really lets you have a conversation on the phone, and it's just a nice way to calm babies. And it's not 10 times a day like an infant. It might be 2 or 3 times a day. Many people who extended nurse put limits, like, you know, we get milkies at home, or, you know, whatever, you know, that they want to do. But it works for many families, and the AAP statement actually says 2 years and beyond, if you really dig deep into their breastfeeding statement, that they are, you know, encouraging moms to nurse as long as they want to.
Cheryl also says that with more moms choosing to breastfeed their infants, many are choosing to continue breastfeeding as well.
I think it's becoming more common, and I think that most people, unless they come from a breastfeeding family, most of the women and my personal friends and myself that have done extended breastfeeding, you don't plan, you don't mark on your calendar and say, I'm nursing till they're 3 and put a big X on their 3rd birthday. I think it happens that you're at 12 months, you're at 14 months, and you're still nursing at naps and bedtime, or wake up nursing is one of the, hard nursings to get rid of when you're trying to wean, because you just snuggle a little bit longer in bed. One easy way to do it is if you are in public and you want some cover for nursing.
Cheryl has advice for moms who get flack from family or friends.
Sometimes we tell them to say, this is recommended, this has great immunities, help them fight infections. You know, if people are open, it's always better to try to educate them. If it's someone you have a good relationship with, I find that you can tell them that's really hurtful when you say that, and we've supported it, and can you keep your comments to yourself? That looks great. The other thing that sometimes I've heard, sometimes at LH League meetings and things, to say is not to tell them. If they want to know if your baby still sleeps in your bed at 14 months, just don't tell them. Don't bring up, wow, they're still sleeping in my bed. Even if you're enjoying it, just don't say it. Is one way, because sometimes you just can't win that argument with people. And if they're fussy, usually if you start walking and patting them, they sort of snuggle and settle in.
And co-sleeping can be controversial. Many people, including some pediatricians, don't think babies or toddlers belong in bed with their parents. Right now, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that for the first 6 months, infants sleep in the same room as their parents, but not in the same bed. Room sharing, meaning having the baby's crib or bassinet in the same room as the parents, has been shown to decrease the risk of SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome. However, the AAP does not recommend that babies sleep in the same bed as their parents. Other experts, like Dr. Sears and Dr. James McKenna, director of the Mother-Baby Behavioral Sleep Laboratory at Notre Dame, say that bed sharing increases the likelihood that mothers will breastfeed, and can be done safely if parents follow these guidelines. Infants should sleep on their backs on a firm, clean mattress with no stuffed animals, puffy bedding, or pillows near the baby. Precautions should be taken to make sure the infant can't fall out of bed. And infants should never sleep on couches or sofas with or without adults. McKenna recommends that only breastfeeding moms bed share. His research has shown they are more aware of their babies, even while asleep. He recommends that bottle-fed babies sleep near the mother on a separate surface. Infants should sleep next to their mother, not in between their parents, and toddlers or other siblings should not share the same bed. Finally, infants should never share a bed with anyone who has been drinking or taking drugs.
I wanted to look in the window and see if we saw Cloudy with a chance of meatballs.
In Braddock Hills, parents Katie and Bob Kay are also practicing attachment parenting with their 2 children. For Bob, parenting children the second time around has been a very different experience.
I have 22-year-old twin boys from my first marriage. So I have like hands-on experience between raising children in the old school way versus the attachment parenting. And the difference between, the old school grandma said, don't let them cry it out. And we did let them cry it out. And, it was hard. It was hard to hear that.
Today, Bob handles his younger children's crying differently.
And there's a reason a baby's cry is that annoying. There's a reason. You're not supposed to ignore it. You're supposed to do something about it. It's supposed to make you want to go pick up your child.
According to child development researcher Dr. Susan Campbell, Bob's right. The reaction to your baby's cries is biological.
So what attachment theory really focuses on is the fact that we are kind of wired to respond to infants in certain ways, and I actually think that there's a lot of evidence for that from the animal literature and also from human literature, that we're wired to respond in certain ways to babies, and babies from day one are wired in certain ways that basically they start with basic reflexes, but their basic reflexes are meant to elicit caregiving.
Dr. Campbell is a professor of psychology at the University of Pittsburgh.
And I've been here for over 30 years. I was director of the clinical program, and I was also chair of the developmental program. And a lot of my research actually is in that area, which we call developmental psychopathology. My areas of expertise are really in infancy, toddlerhood, and the preschool period. And I'm very concerned about the quality of parenting and the influence that parenting has on children's development, because there are so many multiple influences on children's development. But certainly one of the basic factors is going to be the quality of the early parent-child relationship. And I say parent on purpose because I'm not excluding fathers. It's not just mothers.
Attachment theory research suggests the first year of life is especially important.
Well, so the first year, is when the child is beginning to establish a relationship with parents, a sense of self. They're starting to be able to regulate their behavior a little bit. And so the way the parents respond to them in that first year is going to set the stage. So the child who is left to cry it out is going to learn that there's nobody there for them, that they can't rely on others. They're going to have less ability to regulate emotion because they haven't had anybody helping them to regulate their negative emotions, in contrast to the child whose parent is there when they cry, or is there when they're excited about something or stressed about something or interested in something. We can think about positive emotions as well as negative emotions, and how the parent responds is going to get eventually internalized as into the sense of self that the child develops.
Dr. Campbell also points to age as an important factor, even when it's being measured in months.
So we have to think developmentally. And people often don't make distinctions between, say, a 3-month-old, a 6-month-old, a 1-year-old, or a 2-year-old. And so letting an infant cry it out is absolutely not a good thing. Setting some limits on a 2-year-old, that's a different story.
And she makes it clear that there is more than one right way to parent.
So I think that within a huge range of good enough parenting, kids are going to be fine. I think that parents who go back to work can feel very guilty. And some parents have to go back to work. And other parents want to go back to work, and they'll be better parents if they're not home all day with the child. So I think there's no one-size-fits-all.
For new parents, Dr. Campbell has this advice.
Well, I think being, tuned into your baby's individuality for one thing. Some babies are going to be really easy. They're going to sleep through the night pretty fast. They're going to, if they're distressed, they're going to shove their fist in their mouth and suck on their fingers. They're going to be easy to get into a schedule. Those babies are probably pretty resilient. Then we have other babies that are just a little more fussy. They need a little more attention. They may take longer to soothe. And it's really important for the parent to kind of be responsive to the child where the child is at. And so there's no cookie cutter answer, but warm, sensitive, responsive parenting is absolutely fundamental.
Okay, do you want to shred cheese?
For the families who embrace it, practicing attachment parenting comes down to choices. Choices they believe are right for their children.
Well, and it's not an extreme thing either. It's being flexible about parenting your individual children. I'm already not parenting her the exact same way that I did with Tommy.
And between that 20 to 24 week range, we always see a jump.
I think attachment parenting is being aware of your child's needs, is also natural parenting because it's what comes naturally and what feels right.
Come on. It's not a checklist. You don't have to do X, Y, Z. It's not all or none. It's more mindset. It's more an intent.
Hi. Well, why is secure attachment important? That's an excellent question. When children are secure, that means that they feel kind of safe, they feel protected, they feel loved, they feel that they can go out into the world and explore and that people will be there for them.
Love you, Dylan. Love you, Mom. Love you, Piper. Love you.
Let's go.
Love you, Dad.
I think it's kind of helped our relationship too, in ways. You know, there's other, having 2 kids in bed with us every night, maybe not so much, but there are other ways that I think it's helped. Good night, Mom. Good night, sweet boy. We have a lot of love and a lot of affection in the house, and it gets crazy, and we just look at each other probably 10 times a week and just laugh in the middle of it all, so it's all good. Huh, right on cue.